Friends and lovers, welcome to the Jimpressions for Vampyr. I'm not sure if it's supposed to be pronounced vampire or vampire, but I'm going to go with Vampyr because it's spelt with a Y, which you can tell they're very proud of because that red Y is everywhere. It's an objective marker, it's a dialogue choice marker, and it's everywhere in the logo. They love their big red Y. So anyway, this is Vampyr. It is a bit of a janky game. It is in that strata of action RPGs that are just a bit messy on a technical level. You know the kind. Spiders interact. I think the Spiders interactive. Spiders something, but they're famous, like of Orcs and Men, that sort of stuff. Those action RPGs that are good and usually have very interesting premises and some decent writing in them, but when it comes to the combat or just navigating around the map, it's a little bit sloppy, and Vampyr is no exception. It is, in fact, pretty much everything I expected it to be. Maybe not so much of the talky-talky, but there is a ton of it. The opening of this video is going to feature quite a bit of dialogue, which obviously I'm just talking over, but it is pretty representative of the game itself. There is a lot of talking, a lot of investigation, a lot of getting to know characters. You are in fact rewarded for learning about characters through dialogue choices, speaking to everybody, uncovering little notes. Every time you gain a bit of insight into a character, you learn a clue about them, a little bit of their backstory, a little bit of their relationship with other characters. You raise their blood level. Basically, if you want to proper lean into your vampirism, it pays to, ironically, get to know your targets, possibly get to like them, because the more you know about them, the more you know about their blood, and the more XP you get if you do decide to murder the NPCs. You don't have to, but that is an option on the table, and there might be merit in you choosing who lives and who dies, which is of course up to you as a vampire. Since you're a doctor recently turned vampire and you're working in a hospital, some people are sick and they'll need to be cured before their blood is clean and healthy, and that's something else you got to worry about. I say worry about, you can just drink anybody, but again, more XP if you get to know them, if you cure them of their ailments, stuff like that. Of course, there is a downside to this. If you start snacking on NPCs, the health level of the district you're in will go down, which will make it a more dangerous place. While this is an action RPG, I'm tending to find the dialogue stuff, the slow stuff, more interesting than the action, the combat. We'll get to the combat in a bit. We'll show off some combat and discuss that messy thing. But yeah, messy is the watchword for the whole production. Messy but entertaining enough. It is. I quite like it. I had a lot of people, oddly enough, request I look at this. I was ready to look at it before it came out. They said I was going to get a code, but they never bothered sending it, so I went and bought it, no big deal. And I've been playing it recently, and like I say, very enjoyable. Don't go in expecting AAA quality. It won't be found. Visually, it's not great. It's fairly flat. The textures, a lot of them just aren't there. The character models really don't look up to par with this generation, even for quite a few mid-tier games. But that's not always the most important thing. A game can be visually not all that, and so long as it's entertaining, so long as it's fun enough, that's all it needs to get by. And Vampyr does enough to get by, and not just get by, not just be acceptable. Fun enough in its own weird way. I do respect and I do like and I appreciate that it's a game clearly made with some heart, some sincerity. The people made it seem to really give a crap about what they made. They actually go all out in terms of trying to give it some original flowery dialogue and make some fun characters, make some engaging characters, and create a plot of intrigue and mystery that has somewhat absorbed me in. Even if when you talk to some characters, the camera will just place a big block of wood in front of them and you'll have to twist it round. And there's just a lot of elements of this game that aren't up to scratch, but like I've reiterated, it's fine. I mean, obviously it would be better if it was fully polished and up to par, but it's not. So anyway, let's get to the combat. This is the weaker side of Vampyr. It's not dreadful. it's just, it takes some getting used to because it's not ideal. I think that's the best way to describe the combat, not ideal. There's a sneak attack, which I forgot to do for this one, we'll do it for the next one. And as you can see, it's just a lot of hack and slash. You can stun them with a secondary weapon. I've got a stake that I've equipped right here. You can stun them when they've stunned, as indicated by the big blocks under their health going down. You can suck them like a vampire would suck them, and you can get your health back, your blood pool back up, and your health regens a little bit. And you use the blood for the powers. You can unlock several powers as you go on. I just showed off one there that you get sort of beast claws you can use. And I gotta say, some of the powers and the way they talk about blood and embracing characters, you know, when you suck on NPCs, some of the terminology, some of the wording seems like they're inspired by Vampyr. People have wondered if this is a good successor to Vampyr Bloodlines. I wouldn't go that far, but I will say that there is inspiration, if not from the computer game, then from the Masquerade, the White Wolf tabletop RPG, which I'm a lot more familiar with than the game, the video game. Big fan of the tabletop RPG. I think I forgot some loot back there. I'm going to have to go back and get it. Looting's fun enough, and you can craft different potions and remedies for ailments, stuff like that. There's a good pool of weapons. I'm using the hacksaw at the moment, which I found in my doctor's office. I've got an axe that I got off an NPC that I snacked on. And they've got different speed settings, different abilities, different strengths, weaknesses, as you might expect. The secondary weapons are pretty interesting. You can equip guns, which obviously deal damage at range and are pretty good at stunning. We got the stake here. There is a scalpel, which I'll show off in a little bit rather. Just eating some rats here, and that just, as you slash them, you draw a bit of blood. So that's fun. Lots of different fun secondary weapons to choose from. But yeah, as you'll see from just how badly I fight this boss that's coming up, I'm still not fully used to just the way, I was going to say the combat flow, but flow's the wrong word. The combat meander? The roiling tide of combat. One of the big problems I have is that it's difficult to judge distance. It's not like something like Dark Souls, even though they've got a stamina meter basically cribbed from it. Every attack counts, because that stamina goes down bloody quick, and you've got to really, you've got to be very careful about how you deal with that, and I'm not careful in this particular fight at all. But yeah, when you dodge, you would hope that you could attack to counter and hit them back, but you often miss. And missing, even when locked on, like we are here, is fairly common, but the plus side is it's also common for the enemies. They're also pretty prone to having a clean shot at you and fucking it up. So at least what's good for the goose is good for the gander. So I do apologise, this fight really is a shambles on my part, as well as just the shambles that is the combat. A lot of people that were recommending the game or talking about it, or really wanted me to chat about it, seem to share the same opinion, that the RPG side is quite entertaining, but the action side, the combat, is just a means to an end. It's just something you got to get through. I don't hate it as much as some people seem to. A lot of people are playing the game and enjoying it in spite of the combat, and I think it's okay. It's a fucking mess, but it functions well enough, and sometimes the battles can be thrilling, they can be exciting, and the powers are not standout, but they're enjoyable to mess about with. I like stunning and feeding in the middle of combat. It's not the most optimum attack if you want to deal damage, but it's good to have the blood pool up for healing and whatever vampire abilities you've unlocked by evolving, which you can do when you go to a hideout, safe house, go to the bed, and you can unlock from a fairly standard skill tree. It's got all the stat upgrades you'd expect, and some functional powers that are actually fairly powerful even at lower levels, as you can see from the amount of health I chop off when I hit them with the beast claws. And the abilities themselves branch off. You can choose different paths for those, like again the beast claws, which are the ones I've been building the most. You can unlock one particular skill path that draws blood from the enemies as you attack. So there's benefits to a lot of stuff, and it all works well enough. That's the thing. It might be messy, it might be sloppy, but it does get the job done. And it's cheaper than the average game. I think it's $49.99 instead of $59.99, so it's $10 cheaper than the rest. And at least they're not trying to make a ton of extra money off the side with bullshit. At least the game is complete for what it is. God, this is some bad boss fighting on my part, but it don't matter. It's all good. I think I'll end it there. I've said all that I really need to say about it. I would get it if you don't mind. If you've played games like Of Orcs and Men, or if you liked the Technomancer, I wasn't fond of that one. But if you like those types of games, those games that are, and I'm going to say messy again, I guess, janky, any word you want to use for that. It's sorry, the way you fell there. It's stodgy, the controls are loose, to say it diplomatically, but I can't deny that I'm having a giggle with it. It's pretty fun for what it is. It's a good laugh. And really, these days, in video games, you could do with more of that. Just sincere, heartfelt fun.